Patreon. David Neck asked, why no IPAs, bro? I feel like I'm licking an herb garden every time I drink an IPA. Too much. Too much. Stop trying to make it that special. I like beer about the color of my beard, or darker, maybe the color of my t-shirt. I like high specific gravity, high alcohol content, beer that you could cut with a knife. Why? I don't know. Why do some people like the color red and some people like the color blue? That's just what I like. I don't like the flavor profile of IPAs. Like, I feel like I've smashed my face through the spice cabinet in my kitchen every time I drink an IPA. I'm like, well, it's got notes of this and it's got notes of that, and okay, cool. I like coffee stouts, oatmeal stouts. I like stouts. Milk stouts are awesome. I like porters a lot. I like Hefeweizen. Yeah. Now don't get me wrong. You hand me a cold Keystone, I'll drink it. But that's what I prefer. But IPAs, just not a huge fan of IPAs. Now, Michael Harris asked, what are the chicken's motivations for crossing the road? Well, I tried to get a FISA on the chicken, and what I got back was nothing. So, well, I say nothing. I did actually get a jacket on the chicken, but it was so highly redacted that I have to think at some point during its military career that the chicken was sheep dipped and is now a member of the Forklift Operators Union. So I don't know. I tried. The chicken is on record as commenting, "Don't infringe me, bro," but other than that, that's all I got. So hard target, man. I would recommend that you seek out the chicken himself and ask him, because that's all I've got on that. Now, actuality. Earl Sar. Earl Sar. Earl, E-A-R-L, S-A-R, S-S-A-R. Limited time and resources to build up raw land. Where to start and how to prioritize. And we had another question from somebody about the differences between buying raw land or developed land. So we'll kind of riff on this for a little bit. Where to start and how to prioritize. The first thing you need when you get there is a place to lay your head. Okay? So a temporary shelter or a tiny house. You can bring in food and water with you. Right now, if it's heavily wooded when you first get there, you got to clear a place to put the thing, whatever the thing is. If it's a trailer or a tiny home or a shed kit or you know, a wall tent or a whatever, like, you got to have a place to do that. So the first right thing, have a place to put your shelter. Next right thing, put your shelter there. Right, and then after that, what are you doing there? You know, if you have a hard roof, which ultimately you want to have a hard roof, get some water collection going ASAP so that you have water. Water weighs a lot. It's intensive from a caloric standpoint to collect it and transport it, and you need a bunch of it. About 3 gallons a day minimum is what I teach and preach. 1 to wash, 1 for sanitation, and 1 to drink with. Drink with your water. Put it in a glass and hold it in one hand when you sit out at the fire at the end of the day, musing about the day's developments, and talk to it. Drink with it. So, you know, water, you're all right. We didn't always get along, but now that we've spent this time together, and I feel like I've gotten to know you better, and you're okay. I'm glad that I got to drink with you. So drink with your water. Get water going. Shelter first, then water. Okay? Then what's after that, man? It really depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to homestead and you've got a highly wooded lot, you need to knock some trees down. Trees are a blessing, man, because they're labor intensive, but they are commodities. You got firewood, you got mulch. I've got pine needles everywhere. I'd never need to worry about starting another fire in my life. In fact, I have the opposite problem. Don't start too many fires. But building materials, right? I mean, look, gazebo, building materials. So clear trees if you need to. If you don't need to, figure out what are you going to plant. Start moving in supplies and other equipment, and planning your house. I think that everybody should, like, you need the temporary structure to get started with, but then where are you going next? I'm very much so where are we going next? What's the next right thing? So if you have a tiny home or a shed, like the shed is a good idea because you can live in the shed while you build the house, and then after the house is built, you have the shed to do shed things with, you know, to put your lawnmower in there, or your gasoline, or hang your tools up, or stock firewood, or all the things that one would do with a shed. Slash, maybe you have some bunks in there, some cots that fold out, or whatever, that if you had to put people in there, you can. And you know that you can live in it because you've done it, and maybe it has a tiny little wood stove in it, and whatever, some windows for ventilation, right? It's squared away. You can live in it because you've done it. So, but get your permanent structure going. And then you have the shed. Now, and it's kind of difficult to prioritize because I don't know what precisely you're trying to do. So I think next would probably be agriculture. What does your agriculture look like as far as like homesteading, right? Limited time, resources to build up raw land, where to start and how to prioritize. The power of perennials, dude. Like, plant some asparagus, plant some other perennials that they're going to take a couple, 3 years to get going, but do the work now so that in a couple, 3 years they're going. And you don't have to mess with them for, 2.5 decades. They just keep going. Awesome. Get your garden plots going. We are doing a modified Back to Eden / potentially Ruth Stout method-ish type thing here this year, because we've already planted twice on this property, and we learned a lot from planting. It's one of the things that I teach and preach is just start planting, because your plants are going to tell you about your soil. Can you get a soil test? Yeah, sure. But your plants are also going to tell you about how much sunlight they're getting, too much water, not enough water, nutrient deficiencies, so forth and so on. And you learn by doing. So start planting. Wow, this is a great spot for green beans. This place sucks for corn. We don't have enough pollination. We need pollinators with blah, blah, blah. Like, right? So you learn by doing. So get the garden going so that you're learning these lessons as you go. And it's difficult on the front end when you get there, man. It takes a lot of energy to get up to speed, to get up and running. And there's, it takes a lot of energy to kind of get to terminal velocity, to get to free fall mode where you're just maintaining at that point, right? And so it is challenging to prioritize because it feels like there's all these things that have to get done. And I get it, man, the land of almost. Everywhere I look, there's projects that need to be done. It's like, well, what's important, what's not important? What things are mission critical and what things aren't mission critical? And so that comes back to knowing what the mission is. So if you don't have a mission profile, figure it out. What are we doing? What are we trying to accomplish? We want to move on property. Good. When? After you're there, within how many days do you want to be operational? We want to move on property within 90 days, and then we want to be self-sufficient-ish within 180 days, meaning that I don't want to have to be running to town for water and propane or whatever. Okay, cool. Now we have a timeline. You got 3 months to get ready and get there, and then you got 6 months once you're there to handle these things that we've prioritized. And then after that, we're going to assess, and we'll set up another 6-month timeline of things that we really want to nail in the next 6 months, like food forests or perennial plots or livestock or whatever, okay? So it does get kind of overwhelming, but you have to quantify the vision. Where are we going? I got to know where I'm going in order for me to figure out how I'm getting there, right? I got to know what the target looks like in order for me to hit it. So I would encourage you to figure out, what are we doing? Well, we're just going to move here. And then, are we going to be goat farmers? Or like, what are we doing? Are we going to hunt yetis? Or, are we going to, develop our underwater basket weaving skills? Like, what's the goal? Quantify the vision, man. So, and then everything from there supports the mission, right? If it doesn't support the mission, don't do it. So figure out, what is the goal? I want to get there in 90 days. Cool. And then within 180 days of getting there, I want to have these 3 things done. Cool. Now work backward from there. But I definitely think that getting temporary shelter up so you can get a permanent shelter up is highly recommended. Then after that, water collection, dude, like get your water collection squared away, because it's going to be cheaper and more expedient in most cases to start collecting rainwater than it is to drill a well. Wells are expensive. And maybe you have a creek on property. I'm right here next to this creek. Cool. You know what's upstream from this creek right now? Cattle. You know what cattle do? They poop in the water they drink. Doesn't mean I can't filter that. I can. I don't want to. That's not a primary means of hydration, right? That's like emergency means of hydration. Point being, right? Get your water up. Then start moving in supplies and equipment that support the accomplishment of the mission objective. If you really want a tractor, but you don't need a tractor to do the things that you need to do in the next 6 months, don't go buy a tractor. Don't waste all the time and money and energy getting a tractor to do tractor things if you don't need one. However, if you need a tractor to do the tractor things, then get one, okay? Or if you need a chainsaw in order to knock the trees down to do the things, get the chainsaw, right? That's part of the mission objective. So move in supplies and equipment to start making things happen. Get your garden up, and then as far as getting your garden up, from there, that moves into production, right? So if you're producing, now you're getting with livestock. So do the barn things, build your barn, have some kind of structure for a barn, and try and keep your livestock as localized to the barn and the barn near-ish to the house, within 100 or 150 yards of the house, so that it's not like back-breaking work to go do all the livestock things. And a nice tight circle of inputs and outputs from the barn to the animals, to the compost pile, to the garden, to the barn, to the animals, to the compost pile, to the barn, and nice tight circles that everything's right there contained, that you're not walking all over heaven and earth to water your sheep or, you know, feed the chickens or, you know, move the compost or whatever. So get that going. Then lastly from there, and this might, depending on your tactical situation, you might want to prioritize this first, truthfully, is perimeter fencing and gates and access and egress. If you can't get in, if you got no road and there's no fence and there's hillbillies across the street and they're gonna be trouble, put a fence up, put gates up, build a road. Now, we just had $4,000 worth of gravel dropped here because the father laughed at me when I said I was going to move here and be a homesteader, and he was like, cool, you talk at a sideways iPhone and do the coaching and consulting thing, and I'll make sure money shows up in your bank account so you can put gravel down on this road so that you're not stuck here when it rains. So thank you to everybody for gravel. Thank you to the father for everybody. But you probably, I say probably, you may need to prioritize that. Because we walked into a situation here where we had a gate, we have perimeter fencing, and we had roads-ish. Now they all require improvement because this is the land of almost. Shut up, fingernail. But you may need to prioritize that. And livestock requires fencing anyway, right? So you have interior fencing, perimeter fencing, cross fencing, corrals, pens, so forth and so on. So fencing is labor intensive, though. It takes time. It takes time. So, and I get this question a lot too, as far as, you know, well, how do I secure my property? The short answer is you don't. Not all of it. You have things that matter and things that don't, right? I'm not going to secure this entire acreage, you know. It's going to take a lot of people in order for me to secure all of this. And is it the best use of our time and energy? No, it's really not. But in light of that, what is vital? Well, protect the houses, protect the water sources, protect the livestock. And then what happens after that? We have what are called engagements. You're not supposed to be here. Well, we're taking these sheep. No, you're taking rounds, bro. That's what you're taking. So forth and so on. So, you know, and listen, perimeter fences just keep people honest. You know, good neighbors make, or good fences make good neighbors. But if people don't have the, if they're not well behaved enough to respect the fact that you have a fence, having a good fence isn't really going to stop them anyway, right? So but you should have the fence. Like, there's no reason to not have the fence. It just keeps people honest. Now, I did find the card that I was looking for, who's Will Fleischer, who has the financial differences between purchasing raw land and developed land. So I'm going to hit these pretty quick, okay? It's harder to finance raw land. It's been my experience because the land itself is an asset, it's a commodity, but if it doesn't have buildings and stuff on it, right, it's just, there's not a lot of companies that deal with raw land. And I'll tell you this, man, in a lot of cases, even if it's just a fallen down shack or an old single wide or whatever, it makes sense to buy a piece of land that already has some home site on it, because there's electricity there, there's water there, there may even be natural gas or propane there, septic, like it's all already there, wells, water, all that stuff costs money. So yeah, you can get raw land for cheap, ish, depending on where you live, but cheaper for sure than developed land. But that's because there's a significant cost in developing land. I mean, having roads is important. Like I said, we just dropped $4 grand worth of gravel. Just the gravel is $4 grand. And we did most of the driveway, which is about 1,000 feet. Do the math, right? It's $4 a foot. Do the math. It's actually more than that, because there's an area we didn't do, not yet. We'll do it when we can. So all that being said, right, there's a reason why raw land is significantly cheaper than developed land. So if you can find developed land that has an old, home site on it, but the water's already there, the well's already there, there's already a propane tank there, there's already a septic tank, there's already a road more or less pushed in, that saves you time and money in the long run. So that's something to consider for sure. And like I said, the cost for utilities to be installed, if the local power company has to stretch a line to you, that's a lot of money, dude. It can be thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars, depending on where you are, just to bring power in. Now, can you decentralize? Yeah. Should you? Probably. Same thing with water, right? Rainwater collection, do it. Wells, drill them, do it. Creek, yep. Pond, yup. Stream, yup. Absolutely. Should you do all those things? Absolutely. But I'll tell you, probably the biggest thing, and we really take it for granted, is electricity. The flow of electrons makes our life so much easier. And I think a lot of people want to be off grid, but they get off grid, and after about a week they're like, well, that was cute. How do I charge my cell phone now? I'm tired of, taking a cold shower, and I want hot coffee without having to boil water. So, yeah, man. Those electrons, they're the bomb. So then, like I said, you have road costs. Financial differences between purchasing raw land and developed land. Number one, hard to get financing. Number two, the utilities. Number three, road costs. Oh my gosh, road costs. Number four, surveys. A lot of times on a developed piece of land, you have a good existing survey. On raw land, in some cases, you do not. So you may have surveying costs there as well. You're dead to me. Fencing, perimeter and gates. Developed land, you're going to be much more likely to have that, whereas raw land, you're not. So that's another cost, and it's time. It just takes a hell of a lot of time. Home site clearing costs. Where are you going to put the house? Where are you going to put the barn? It's time and money. It's just time and money. So if you can find a good deal on an existing home site, get it. Even if you just knock the house down that's there, because all the things are already there. Otherwise, if you move onto undeveloped land, you can defer a lot of these costs by being smart and decentralized, but understand that it probably is going to take you longer to get up and running, because you're going to have to put a lot of time and energy into just carrying water, just bringing in food, just setting up solar panels to get the electricity to do the things, right? Like, all of that takes time and energy. And so if you're looking for the shortest distance to where you want to be, developed land, while it costs more, can actually get you set up faster. I mean, we do call this place the land of almost, but we were fortunate to come into a place that, I mean, I have 2 different power transformers on property, right? I have a significant amount of power that's brought in here already. I have a barn and another small outbuilding behind Grandma's house. I have 3 wells with 2 electric well pumps. I have a stock pond. I have 3 creeks. I have a road that by the hand of the Father now has $4,000 worth of crushed stone on top of it. And because of all of that, I've been able, my time on target has been better. I've been able to dedicate more time to getting the agricultural side of things up and running because I don't have to build a shelter. I know where the water is coming from. You know, I'm not concerned about refrigeration of my food. I can move about my property more or less easily with a vehicle or on foot because all these things are done already. And we got a hell of a deal on this land as well. So, you know, I've said before, about 148K for 20.5 acres, but 2 houses, 3 wells, a smallish barn and a medium-ish barn, and the road and all of the fences and the stock pond and the creeks and the everything. And we have, between the 2 houses, 8 bedrooms and 4 or 5 baths, 4.5 baths, something like that. I mean, I can put lots of families here. I think my current carrying capacity on property for families is 14 families. If the world ended tomorrow, it's 14 families. If it ended tomorrow. And we're doing everything we can every day to increase that, right? So 148 grand to some people sounds like a lot, to others it's nothing. But understand that my house, my 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 3-bedroom, 2-bath on a 1/3 of an acre, fallen down, probably should have been bulldozed house in North Texas was valued at $210,000. Now we still have that house, but point being, that versus this for 70 grand less, yeah, I'll take it, man. I'm in. So, but that's the upside of dealing with raw land versus developed land. And the developed land saved me a lot of time and energy to come in here and not have to worry about getting things up and running. They're already here. But again, the biggest thing with undeveloped land or raw land is, in a lot of times, securing financing. And if you do, a lot of times it'll be owner financed, and it'll be a small amount down. You can put a small amount down. Yeah, I got, you know, $300 down on the land, and I pay $300 a month. Cool. But the moment you miss 2 payments, man, they're taking all your money and they're gone. You got to be careful with that owner financing. Make sure that it's legit, and make sure that the land is worth financing in the first place. I've seen a lot of these owner financing deals that it's, you know, rocks on the side of a pretty stout hill with no water and no way to get to it. I'm like, dude, yeah, okay, it's only $300 a month, but you're gonna blow $3,000 a month trying to make this thing livable. Not worth it. So, yeah, man, there we go. That's for you, Will Fleischer and Earl Saar and David Neck and Michael Harris. There's a 4-for-1. Welcome.